Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Okay, so on today's episode, I have got with me Josh Spencer, and he is the EV sales manager from Ford and Slater. Josh, thank you ever so much for joining me. We met last year, didn't we? Was it about November time? And my husband came to speak at DAF Trucks.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks ever so much for having me, Liz. Great to see you. And you're right. Yeah, it was part of one of DAF's EV events last year that we kind of all get involved in. So yeah, no, thanks ever so much for having me.
And it was organised by Amy Carter, who I've also had on the podcast, and she was amazing. But you were on our table when both me and Richard were there, and it was just great to get to know you. So, of course, I wanted to get you in and have a chat with you about DAF from your point of view and what you're doing at Ford and Slater. So I always start off by asking people how they got into the industry, into the sector. Do you want to give me a little bit of your background and tell me what was your journey to get to where you are now?
Yeah, of course. So, trucks have been my career really. So I started out as a technical apprentice back in 2006. So I was when I was a school student, I wanted to be vocational. Went at 15, 16, went out and got some work experience. Wanted to go into an apprenticeship. Got myself that apprenticeship. Knew it was what I wanted to do at the time, and at the same time, love working with people. Have always loved working with people, and knew that the technical grounding would be the best possible start I could get in the industry, and I've never really felt that was the wrong choice. Like it's in the meantime, I've then part-time studied and gained my degree last year with the Open University, and wonderful organisation that is. And I would never. You should never have any regrets, should you? And no. Part of me sort of would have can see very much the benefit that I didn't see at 16 in going to university and things like that. But at the same time, I've loved my journey, and I spent a little bit of time, spent the first 6 years of my career on the tools, so to speak, and then spent a few years in the customer service side of first truck businesses and then a couple of years in car businesses. And I actually owe an incredible amount to a lady called Kim Hampshire, who I was helping support her with some issues with her car when I was a service advisor in a car dealership. And she'd had some issues with the car. We got them sorted. We got chatting one evening, and she was the owner and manager of the DAF training school. So DAF, like a lot of organisations, they have a training sort of side of the business or another business who support them with that function. And she was the managing director for that business. She said, I would love to sort of get you in front of our team to see what they think of you. And so a couple of months later, I started as a technical trainer for DAF. Spent probably a year doing that, and then found my way into technical sales. And realised I'd found my vocation, and sort of that I love talking to people about trucks, helping people find the right solution for trucks, and of course then that's evolved into EV, which I'm sure we'll get into a bit more. But yeah, that's sort of a brief history.
I love that. I mean, I've kind of worked in apprenticeships, in improvement apprenticeships myself before, and delivered them, so I know what it provides to people. And not everybody wants to go or has the what are academically inclined, with regards to kind of going to university. So I think it is a really, really good way of kind of getting in there. And actually, if you've got a degree through an apprenticeship, then or using a degree apprenticeship, I think that's fantastic. So well done you. Good on you.
Yeah, I think the apprenticeship for the fixing trucks just gave me such a great grounding in the whole industry, and and it's meant that I've never been afraid of doing anything within the business and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really like such a great believer in that. It teaches you to treat everyone, everyone across the business with respect, and you know the troubles that people have day to day, and that they don't. So things evolve, things change, but the still core same challenges for people remain, and it gives you that empathy and compassion with that, and that's so important. Like I'm super grateful to have done the business degree through the OU, and that took me about 12 years in the end, on and off. But what a great experience, and wonderful to. It's never been about the piece of paper. It's always been about the learning within that, and I'm grateful to the people who supported along the way. That was funded to begin with, and then went on and
Yeah,
I'm
I
very
was going to
grateful.
say because I know. So you've done yours through OU, haven't you? So Open University, and I know that Amy's doing a degree through a degree apprenticeship. So because I suppose they've only just kind of come in really over the last few years, anyhow. So that's, but like I say, either way, it's just brilliant. The fact that you've had these opportunities, and you've kind of taken the bull by the horns. But let's talk about how trucks are transitioning over to electric, because there must be kind of a level of skepticism from fleet operators. Am I right? Because I know that we went to that event where my husband was speaking, and I've got a question to ask you later about that. But actually, it's a big move, isn't it? It's a big move from a diesel truck over to electric. What are you kind of experiencing, or what have you been experiencing?
Yeah, so I think to kind of continue that journey, it's 4 years ago that the business I work for, Ford and Slater, came to me and said, we're getting a demonstrator vehicle, one of the first DAF demonstrators in the UK for electric. Would you pick that up and run it from nothing? And as a privately owned business, we're probably somewhere around close to 900,000 staff.
Wow.
But we're ultimately privately owned family business, and I'm incredibly grateful to the vision that team has shown in, and trust in me growing this. And to take on to take your question, which is a great one. I think the challenges exist at varying levels, and have probably evolved within that time. So I'm absolutely not naive to the fact. Started out 4 years ago with it, 19-ton truck, rigid vehicle, which would do great, local deliveries, obviously zero emission, save money on running, etc., etc. But most transport people, care about three things primarily: how much can I carry, how far can I go, how much is it? And it doesn't, yes, you can build everything around that, but it starts with those three core things, right? And it would carry, only slightly less than the diesel equivalent, wouldn't go as far as the diesel equivalent, and was obviously a lot more expensive than diesel equivalent at that point. But actually, slowly but surely, we developed relationships with customers. I spent the first sort of 2 years with that vehicle, showing it to people, helping them appreciate where the technology was going, what it was doing, educating, etc. That resulted in some wonderful sort of early adopter type vehicle sales with customers, to whom I'm super grateful for the trust they placed in us, to the point where we probably have looked after a dozen or so vehicles within our area, which when there are not a huge number of electric trucks on the road anyway, has given us a huge amount of experience as a business. And I really do mean it. Like, this is a team effort, and so I've been building the culture within the business where everyone is behind it and wants to see success for the electric vehicle transition in trucks. And so actually that's then allowed us, like I say, some of the relationships we've been building with people are we're 3 years into that. And that, as I say, the challenges have changed. They've probably scaled up because pressure to reduce carbon emissions within big businesses is increasing, rightly so. And actually, people need people with experience to provide solutions and help them appreciate all of the different attributes to the products in the marketplace, and how they might be able to deal with those. To touch on your question, The biggest challenge is not the trucks, but the charging infrastructure. As I'm sure I'm not the first person
Yeah.
to have said within all of this,
Mm.
and actually, that's where 2 years ago I probably longer realised that ZERFD, as it was known then, ZEID now, the Zero Emission Haulage and Infrastructure Demonstrator, was going to be the route into kickstarting this for us as a business. So we're incredibly, I'm personally am so grateful to the customers who are putting the faith in us to be able to deliver their ZEID vehicles. And we've gained over 15% of all of the ZEID orders as a single business.
Oh wow.
Probably about 20-25%, overall for DAF. I've been involved in a lot of customer conversations with those, and actually, I think we sit within a hierarchy of balance of attributes across different vehicle brands and battery chemistries and ranges, resulting and all of that kind of stuff. And it's, as I say, it's been far more about linking people up with the right charging installers, charging partners. We probably have two or three, really good charging installer partners who are each able to bring strengths to different customer relationships, which the psychology of sales dictates that not everyone at every scale gets on with everyone else in the right way or gels as businesses, and so
Yeah.
it's been wonderful to bring the right kind of partnerships to customer conversations to support with infrastructure. That's been critical. Like without we started with our first demonstrator. The battery capacity and the technical features allowed it to AC charge overnight quite effectively. So for overnight, single shift vehicles, perfect. But then that conversation starts to grow quite quickly. So how can I sweat that asset more, because obviously it's an expensive asset? How can I get more out of that? Then it becomes a DC conversation. And at that point, it's about introducing the right experts. My core business for me is about helping people with the truck solution, and actually, why not bring in great people who can help support the charging infrastructure, really.
Yes. So okay. So let's flip it on its head. Then you were talking about we were talking about kind of probably the way that people think, and the negative side in some ways there. What are the long-term benefits besides, obviously, you've got your zero emissions at the tailpipe, but what other benefits are there from electric trucks?
I mean, first and foremost, clearly the carbon emissions benefits and the local air quality benefits outweigh all, really, and
Yes.
I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about that. But I also recognise that we exist in the society that we do and in the economies that we do, and actually there needs to be a good, a hugely beneficial economic case for these things. And we're now starting to see operators learn what that opportunity looks like, really, and what that economic case looks like. So ZEID essentially allows customers to de-risk that learning process, and that's hugely important for our economy and our decarbonisation as a nation. And so those operators being able to understand, well, how much, when I have a number of vehicles and I'm able to get a better energy price as a result and all that kind of thing, how much can I afford to spend on the vehicles going forwards, and how much can I, do I need to spend on the infrastructure? That will all become more well known to them. Their cultures will improve. That has huge strategic advantages for them as businesses, for those ZEID partners, because they're forward thinking. Some of their competitors in their respective industries will be somewhat caught off guard, because that will mean those operators will be able to provide a reduced carbon emission service for their customers and supply chains, whilst also understanding that they can either do it at parity or better than parity from a running cost perspective. The majority of truck customers can tell you what they paid for diesel that morning, because they burn millions of litres of diesel a year, and they
Yeah.
buy very, very well. And actually, they're probably not buying electricity very well, because they run, they have warehouses with LED lighting, energy saving measures, a few conveyor belts, and a few laptops, but no real consumers. Whereas, a fleet of 100 trucks could end up charging 50 megawatt hours a night if they're doing 400 miles a day. So suddenly that becomes a hugely meaningful energy spend
Yes.
with an energy company, and we've seen it ourselves on a small scale. We've now got 4 180 kilowatt charger units across 4 of our sites. So we've got customers, both DAF and non-DAF customers, coming in and charging their vehicles with us, and we're finding that as we've been putting those in and we've been signing energy contracts for those chargers across the sites, the pricing's more than halved, because the energy company can see that we're moving into that space. We're going to become higher users of energy. Yes, the overall economic background of the energy crisis we've been through plays into that to a point, I think. But at the same time, it's an improvement where hopefully they can see that the volume will come within that, and from small acorns mighty oak trees grow. And I think we're hoping to be in a position in 5 years' time where why aren't we looking at putting a lot more charges in? Customers, I think it's really important. I speak to a lot of the CPOs and the energy providers and the charge point, the actual commercial vehicle people who are in this space wanting to put in chargers in the UK, and we see ourselves as having a small but meaningful place within charging, where at our Leicester head office we service between 30 and 40 vehicles in every 24-hour period. And so our kind of central one of our central pillars is that we deliver those vehicles back fully charged when they move to electrics. Obviously there are some today, but as that grows to volume, we want to deliver all of those vehicles back fully charged. We don't want customers to have to take vehicles back to their own depot, recharge those, lose productivity on the assets, all that kind of stuff. So we see and our customers see there as being huge value in that once every 6 weeks or once every 8-week inspection cycle for vehicles, that those customers can get a full charge. And I think we're probably slightly unique in the UK within that. European trucks don't need to be seen on those intervals. In the UK, we have incredibly rigorous inspection cycles for vehicles, rightly so, for the size and potential damage there is for danger there, and actually so yeah, we see an important place within that, and hopefully again 30-40 vehicles a day, that's an awful lot of energy that we're going to be using and providing to customers.
So like you say, I suppose it's that long-term solution, isn't it? Kind of with regards to you're going from something that really, really well, like diesel, like you say, they know every day how much the diesel's costing them, and because of I suppose there's been an uncertainty in energy prices, in general. It's transitioning, isn't it? It's not just a transition for the vehicles and the charging. It's a transition for your procurement teams and things like that, actually, or the procurement teams involved to actually look at, right, okay, what does this look like with regards to, right, 1 truck, 2 trucks, 10 trucks, 20? How is that going to look? I was going to ask you actually what truck charging would look like, and I suppose what I was thinking as well, are any of the companies that you're working with, are they also introducing, or have they introduced, solar and battery storage to kind of optimize what they're putting through? I know it's obviously another cost, but I mean, some of them have perfect roof space for things like this, and enough space out in the, kind of in the car park or wherever the trucks are parked to actually kind of, optimize that, make it like into a microgrid.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. I think obviously, businesses have ended up putting solar on warehouses before they've all been investing in electric trucks. But I almost see things more at a macro scale. So I think there's a place for it, 100%. Can anyone's roof space provide enough solar capacity to be able to charge a fleet of electric trucks. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Like it would,
Yeah. No, I
it
get
would
you.
require an awful lot. So I think where there's possibly more benefit is then, putting pressure on energy companies for renewable tariffs, because that that moves the whole investment structure away from fossil fuels, and that's the way to win this, right? And I think
Yes.
it's really exciting to see the likes of Octopus Energy breaking cover on truck charging. I'm sort of setting up a call with one of their people next week, because why wouldn't we be talking to them about everything from charging opportunities to leasing opportunities? But Octopus is a really exciting one because they're kind of completely vertically integrated from an energy perspective. We are, as a household, completely gas free, and I'm really glad that we've made that transition. And actually, we can see on a personal perspective the benefit in, I'm a high mileage user. The other car users within the household are medium mileage users. We've got a heat pump installed. And all of those things together probably save us over £1,000 a month as a family. So what are the available savings that can be made as a truck business as the pricing improves on the vehicles, which it will do? We've obviously been through huge R&D cycles, and as this moves to volume, that gets better. And actually, the orders of magnitude cheaper these vehicles are to run, we can see it making more and more economic sense for customers. And as I say, it's super exciting to see how the ZEID operators will find that out for themselves as well. And then, clearly we're incredibly grateful for the pipeline opportunities that represents to move out to volume as we demonstrate the vehicles work this year, and they do what we say they're going to do, and that helps us all move forward. So it's it's an incredibly 2025 is such an important pivotal year, I think, within it. And as you alluded to, we're spending an enormous amount of time and energy putting in the support for our customers, not just with the charging, but with every area of the business. We want customers to feel that the electric experience sort of permeates through every area. That means that when you have a salesperson come to see, they see you in an electric car. You get your parts delivered via an electric parts delivery van, which we've changed over the course of the fleet last year, playing next quarter this year. And that when you bring a truck in for service and it goes, you take a courtesy vehicle away, that courtesy vehicle is electric as well. So, and on top of that, having more than enough electric heavy vehicle trained technicians to be able to look after the vehicles, we see all of those things as being incredibly important to the overall proposition and journey. And again, I said it earlier on when compared to charging, but the truck really makes up a reasonably small proportion of the overall value proposition for us. We want to be there as an end-to-end support for our customers and to help guide them, really.
I mean, that's a really good USP, Josh. I mean, to actually be able to give that solution and prove that you are doing what you say you do on the tin. To me, that's so important, because if you're selling electric trucks and somebody turns up in a diesel van, then what is that giving you? Whereas your USP is, we do this and we prove that we do this, which is great. And I know it takes time to transition all of your fleet and everything like that, but actually the fact that you are doing that. In fact, I was just thinking, the other organisation that I know that kind of sprung to mind then is EV Body Shops, which I had a little bump when we first got our EV, which was a bit of a silly thing that I did. But EV Body Shops did exactly that. They kind of the car that they gave me was electric, and no other. Doing it through the insurer, I would have just got a petrol or a diesel vehicle. Yeah. But going, it was just it makes the experience very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, what you're doing,
Couldn't agree more. We practice what we preach, and it's important for customers to see that we as a business, because we're business partners with them, it's important for them to see that we can believe in it, and culturally it makes sense for us. We, as I mentioned, we put in 20 electric parts delivery vans last year, and those are high mileage vehicles within our fleet. They'll do 160,000 miles over 4 years, and yes, the vehicles were more expensive to begin with. Yes, there's a higher interest cost, but actually, as a net across the whole life of the vehicle, we expect to save in the region of £20,000 running each of those vehicles compared to the diesel equivalent. So I spend a lot of time working with customers on the total cost of ownership calculation for the trucks, and we set ourselves the same challenge with the assets that we're using within the business. So that's been a key way of me helping convince our board to do those things, is because actually it makes economic sense first and foremost, and aligns really well with our environmental sort of culture and plans as well. So the two have to be mutually beneficial, mutually exclusive, and it works very well for us.
So is there anything else that the government needs to do to actually start, kind of accelerating fleet decarbonisation currently? Obviously you've talked about ZEID, but that's so on the charging side, because you can't have one without the other, can you really? It's kind of make them and they will come. Well, actually, you can't just make them and they will come. You've got to make them and they will come. And actually, but if they come and then you've not got a charging infrastructure, you've got, but what else is needed to kind of incentivise people? Is there something, or is there enough there at the moment?
I think because of the expense involved in the infrastructure, it has to kind of grow concurrently. And what you're going to find from I guess there's two questions there. So to answer the government side, I spend a lot of time with the ZEID customers we're working with, and one really important element of that whole project is helping government appreciate the easy wins that are available to be able to deliver upon this transition more quickly. Now, for truck operators, the rest of the TCO is kind of meaningful, but if they can't carry as much as they did before, a lot of these people, especially with bulk product, get paid per ton, and so actually one of the best pieces of lobbying effort going on with the ZEID operators is that there's a sort of question around, at the moment you can run a 5-axle combination tractor unit and trailer of 42 tons, and there's a lobbying effort to move that to 46 now, to address some of the concerns around road damage, etc. There are markets in Europe which allow 5 axles to run at 50 tons, so it's kind of well proven from an engineering perspective. And the reality, a lot of people cite excessive potholes with weight and all that kind of thing. Well, actually, the average payload of a diesel 6-axle vehicle is say 27, 28 tons, and therefore the average on the 42-ton 5-axle vehicle, with weight increases and all that kind of thing, is somewhere around the 24-ton mark. Well, if you're 3 tons down, that means that potentially 3-4 tons down, potentially you've got to send a 6th or 7th lorry for every 5 or 6 you're able to send for diesel. So it's a much better thing for road, concerns around road wear, by allowing the same number of vehicles to just carry the same amount of weight as before, perhaps at slightly higher axle loadings, rather than seeing 10-15% increase in the number of trucks that have to be on the roads anyway. Because this whole transition has to be around energy efficiency and resource efficiency, and so it's one of the main reasons the industry is, I think, sort of really coming to the conclusion that perhaps hydrogen for road transport isn't the answer, because actually it's so energy inefficient. And so from a weights perspective, it would allow us to be both resource and energy efficient to the same sort of level as we are today, without having to put thousands more vehicles on the road to carry the same amount of product. So that probably alone is the single biggest government, if there's anyone who ends up listening to this in a ministerial position, that would be the one, I think, which everyone would like to push for, because the vehicles are completely capable of it, the equipment we use is completely capable of it, and it feels like that would be a nice easy win. From a charging infrastructure perspective, there are some absolutely superb organisations who are working really hard to put in infrastructure for truck operators, and I think that has, a huge opportunity for commercialisation. Even on our own smaller, 180 kilowatt charger is fast for a car. It's probably mid-speed for a truck, right? There are obviously much faster chargers out there and faster charge speeds on our trucks available. But even with that, we find that the average charge session is, for the amount of kilowatt hours delivered, 3, 4, 5 times the average car CPO charge session. So at that point, actually, this is a huge opportunity for both the charge point operators, but also because they're delivering so much more, the utilization and throughput is so much higher. They can afford to do that at better margins for the truck industry, which is what those truck operators will need to accelerate the transition. You're not going to see the same pricing as you do with the car industry for, the majority of cars who might go and use DC once a year because they only ever go away in their car on holiday once a year, and the rest of the time they use it to, nip to the shops and back. And that's where some of this gets to, is that, there's probably going to be very different commercial models for truck operator charging, because they're going to be using so much more of it. They become, business partners with these CPOs. But as I say, it's wonderful to see how much is going on to, how much good work is going on to actually put those units in across the UK, and the coordination, because nobody wants competitor charge stations to open on opposite sides of the road and then there be huge black spots in parts of the country. So what's lovely to see is there is a real collaborative effort to make sure that there's good coverage from day one. That's beneficial for the CPOs. They're not, competing as much on a local geographic level. Important for the customers because they get better coverage. And yes, as that grows, then there's room that room for competitive edge, and I think we'll see that reasonably quickly.
I suppose my question, you've just made me think of something there. You do see, or have seen, roads where petrol stations, you've got one on one side of the road and one on the other. And so it will be good to actually have that level of collaboration, because you kind of think to yourself, why would you have 2 petrol stations on opposite sides of the road? What was the point in doing that, other than trying to vie for each other's customs? So I'm glad that there's that kind of that effort to make sure that we kind of spread this out. How many have you got any idea how many chargers we're kind of looking at? That, I mean, obviously you've got depot charging, but has ZEID kind of started rolling out the charging infrastructure now? Is it kind of drip feeding around the country?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit tricky in my position to understand every single charger location, but from all of the data points that I see across customers and the ZEID consortiums, who we're super grateful to be working with, the impression I get is that there are orders of magnitude more charger guns going in than trucks to begin with, and mainly that's to support people's rollout and build up of fleets, and so the actual charging experience will be very good from day one with those organisations. There are a number of those consortiums, and indeed we're looking at it for our sites, who will create booking functions, opening times, site safety briefings, which will create order from that, from what we can see as chaos in car charging sites at times. And that will then allow transport operators to plan much better. I think within the industry, it's going to be hugely important to have that competitivity, and that will come. You already see it in the car charging space with different brands of chargers in the same car parks, and so you already see that, and that's exciting. That's getting exciting for the consumer. Whilst the marketing effort around people paying for the infrastructure and not the energy, and not necessarily just the energy, it is an important part. We'd all much rather that we can go to that extremes of our own duty cycle, whether that be for trucks or cars, and have reliable charging infrastructure at the end of it. And if it means you're not just paying for the energy at that point, then that's an important part of the conversation, isn't it? But again, I think that the winners within this will recognise themselves as taking a partnership approach with customers and wanting to, help support them on that journey, and I think that will pay them bigger benefits in the long term potentially.
Oh, definitely. So there are some rules. I just wanted to just kind of try and you help me remember what the rules are. The rules around stopping and charging. There's a rule, isn't there, that kind of the
So
plugging
drivers'
in
hours
of
rules.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah. So
drivers'
they
hours
can only
rules. Yeah,
drive for a certain length of time, can't they? But at the moment, the rules around plugging in is this this kind of it's sort of fallen into the old, oh, let's putting the nozzle in to fill up for diesel, and
yes.
there's some kind of breakdown needed for that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's work going on to allow charging at drivers' rest stops. That's an important delineation for them to make, because, as you rightly say, they're not. It's like with cars, isn't it? None of us who drive cars, electric cars, plug into a DC charger and then stand there as the attendant for the period of charge. Like, it's the last
Yeah.
thing that any of us would ever do. And so the recognition of that fact within drivers' hours legislation is really important. The Yeah, of course, you're absolutely right. Drivers are restricted to 4.5 hour drive time, 45-minute rest stop at the end of that, and within the vehicles themselves, obviously you've got speed limiters at 56 miles an hour. So we sort of, where we've had the most success with customers is actually helping them remember that we have a 250-mile real world range on our tracked unit products, and you can only do 250 miles in a 4.5 hour period at 56 miles an hour. And those of us who regularly use the strategic road network in the UK know how impossible a dream that is to do that amount of distance in that time. So I think customers have definitely become more at peace with the ranges available, to say, well, if I've got distribution centres that are 200 miles apart and we design that today anyway for a 4.5 hour drive time, then if you've got charging at the end of that and you've used 80%, if you can go back up to 80% in an hour, let's say on a 350 kilowatt charger, then actually you've got the ability to do a 400-mile round trip within a normal shift with very little. It might be 15 minutes longer, but actually you've got essentially the ability to be able to do that duty cycle within a normal shift and not really have any operational sort of interference. So I think that's helping people make peace. The economic case is coming, and I think it's in certain duty cycles and with the volume, with the volume improvements in the vehicle pricing we see coming, that makes that even easier to justify. And don't think it will take operators a huge amount of time to appreciate how much less they can, how much less they can run these vehicles for. At which point, I think there will be a recognition within those businesses quite quickly that actually, we can accelerate this transition. We can differentiate ourselves from our competitors. We can offer our customers, reduce CO2 emission transport solutions before anyone else, and that's really exciting. I think that will drive their businesses to greater success, and hopefully it will drive their competitors to see the need for change as well.
So just asking you this, stepping back a second, something just bobbed into my head. How long does it take for a driver to fill up their vehicle with diesel? Because obviously you're looking at gallons of the stuff, aren't you? So literally you go to a DC charger and you plug in. How long does it take? And they've got to, if they're filling up with diesel and it's stinky and horrible, they've got to stand with the cab, haven't they? And they've got to fill up. How, on average, have you got any idea how long does that take?
Yeah, so it depends. Most cars might have a 50 to 80 litre fuel tank, let's say 80 on a bigger car. The average, on a tracked unit, the truck fuel tank is normally 500 litres, but that could be anywhere up to 1,800 to 2,000 litres.
Wow.
Now you think about how long it takes to fill a passenger car when you've done it. Suddenly, yes, there are high delivery high delivery nozzles and things like that. But it's still a 15 to 20 minute exercise, and then they might have to fill the AdBlue tank as well, which is a treatment fluid for the exhaust gases. And suddenly, yeah, it's a half an hour endeavour. And as you rightly say, that's then considered other work. So whereas we all know that, those of us who drive EVs all know, you pull up to a services, actually it takes 5 seconds to fill up, because you just plug in and go and do what you need to do, and same at home, of course. So I think there is a massive saving, really, an unseen saving for operators in that reduced time, and it's all incremental, isn't it? Yes, somebody wouldn't give it a second's thought with one vehicle, but if you've got a fleet of 2,000 vehicles and you're saving half an hour, even if it's half an hour a week, suddenly if you're saving 1,000 hours a week across the business, that's quite large, isn't it? It's something worth thinking about, certainly.
And nobody wants to stand out in the rain for 15 minutes in inclement conditions. I mean, today I'm looking out the window in Reading, and actually we've got, it's not quite blue skies, but it's clear skies, you know what I mean? But it's not like that very often, is it? And we do have those weather systems, and so actually if you can get one of your drivers to plug in quickly with it, rather than having to stand getting soaking wet, for
Absolutely.
15, 20 minutes, then
and
Brucey bonus.
Absolutely. And my hands, I only spent 6 years in the workshop, but my hands suffered the damage of, carcinogenic, fossil fuels. And actually, who if we were to invent fossil fuel refueling today, and you were to tell somebody that they were to, feed the vehicle with a highly flammable carcinogenic substance, I don't think we do it. So yeah, I totally agree that it has incremental and not necessarily immediately tangible benefits, which help from numerous perspectives. You will have had people on this podcast before who've spoken about improved driver ergonomics, reduced fatigue, reduced vibration and noise, etc., etc. But I think, again, I've been an EV driver for 2 years solid, do big miles, and those who have longer, we all can appreciate the benefits, and those benefits only seem to magnify when it comes to trucks, really.
I can imagine, because I mean, just even for me being an EV driver, I appreciate the quiet. I mean, I have my music on anyway, but it's not that, you still get the road noise, don't you? But it was just all the other noises, and I know there are petrol heads that love that revving of the engine and all this kind of stuff. Well, I actually appreciate more the fact that you don't get that. You can listen. I can actually hear. I don't have to turn my music up because the engine's too loud. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know. It just feels differently. And if you're driving 400 miles in a day, I can imagine changing that ability. Having that silence, or just like you said about the rumble and things like that. It'd be so much better for people.
Absolutely. And Liz, I have to confess, traditionally I've been a petrol head, and and I got the opportunity to drive the MG Cyberster at the end of last year. What an incredible EV experience, and I have to say, like, it's got me, very much considering something like that in the future, because it was just fantastic, and I think we're slowly but surely moving on from that visceral experience, needing to have a V8 petrol engine or whatever it might have, and I still do have a kind of place in my heart for those things. How long that will stay is anyone's guess. But ultimately, yeah, you can. We took our sales team to one of the UK's electric go-karting tracks last year in Nottingham, and I'll be honest, I was terrified that everyone would hate it and they wouldn't think it was as fun as the petrols. And I missed the smell, I missed the feel, and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? It couldn't have been further from the truth. Everyone absolutely loved it. The karts were amazing. Obviously, I was out with them, as competitive as anyone, and it was incredible. Like, you still got out, you're shaking, your heart's pounding. Like, it was just great. And I think we don't. Yeah, there's a growing realization that I think we don't need that within the things that give us petrol heads our kicks.
Yeah, and do you know what? And that's the thing about being a petrol head, is that actually you're breathing the damn stuff in. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? You
yeah,
know, and actually, and I keep and talked about this, and there's a podcast that it's probably just come out last week, about air pollution, and the stuff that people don't actually realise that they're breathing into their lungs, that is, we're not.
yeah, absolutely.
If we saw it, if it was black soot, coming out of a chimney, we'd be like, oh my God, that's disgusting. But we don't know this. We don't
Yeah,
see it in some
yeah,
ways. So it's kind of, we're changing things so much. I'm going to ask you one final question, because it's
of
been it's
course.
been wonderful talking to you about it. I've got one final question. If you could fast forward 5 to 10 years, what would you like to see the commercial vehicle sector look like?
I would love to see us fully ingrained in a culture of electric vehicles, and I can see us, looking after those 30 or 40 vehicles, electric heavy goods vehicles per day, per night, whatever, through our sites. And I think, like, I measure myself in terms of our sales for carbon emissions reduction. So with the trucks we've sold already, if those all do their intended duty cycles, then those vehicles alone should save 5,000 tons of CO2 from being emitted into the atmosphere every year. And so would I love to be in a place in 5 years' time where the vehicles we sell have the potential to save 50,000 or 100,000 tons of CO2 a year? That's really exciting.
I like that, and I think you have to look at the more sustainability angle on this anyway. I was going to talk to you about kind of when my husband was talking climate change, but I think next time I will get you on again, and let's just actually, do you know what? I'm gonna talk to you another time, and we'll get you back on in a length of time, and then see how things have progressed, because I think, you know, it's going to be really interesting over this next kind of 12-18 months, perceptions changing, and just kind of the whole experience, and just winning people like petrol heads over, and hopefully, kind of making a real difference. So Josh, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you ever so much for your time.
No, thank you, Liz, and definitely 12 months time we'll have all the ZEID vehicles will be in and working, and it would be wonderful to be able to share those learnings and how we've got on with that. So yeah, definitely. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, let's do that. So everybody who's been watching and listening, I always say this. Thank you ever so much for every time you listen to this podcast or watch it on whichever channel. I really, really appreciate it. Let's kind of get that, get the word out about Josh, and get, about ZEID and DAF and all the electric trucks. All of this stuff is really, really interesting stuff, and it's worth kind of sharing with people. So if you can share, watch, just talk to people about this podcast, just to get the word out, then it would be very, very much appreciated from my heart. So to everybody watching and listening, I'm going to say, see you later. See you next time. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for watching Electric Evolution. I really love bringing you these weekly conversations about sustainability, renewables, and building a cleaner future together. If you're passionate about positive change, please like, subscribe, and share with others who also care about these topics. You can also download our white paper, Plugging into the Future, at fullcircleci.co.uk and join the discussion on improving sustainable transport, or email me at liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks for watching. Bye.